President Obama has already started campaigning for the 2012 presidential election. Yona Metzger, Israel's chief Ashkenazi rabbi, has said if President Obama wants to get elected, he should free convicted spy Jonathan Pollard. Is this a threat? Does Israel have this kind of power and influence over American politics and elections? We'll answer those questions and more this week on American Dream. I'm your host, Nisa Islam. Just who is Jonathan Pollard? For the last 25 years, he sat in a North Carolina cell convicted of passing U.S. intelligence secrets to Israel. President Obama got a letter from Prime Minister Netanyahu asking him to release Jonathan Pollard. American politicians and others have joined a campaign to free Jonathan Pollard. Here's what people are saying around the country.
Right now, we don't need anything to reflect that we're anything but an absolute ally of Israel. This would send the right message to the rest of the world, that America is not pulling back on its friendship and relationship with Israel, but it is accelerating and making sure that we're taking every step possible to solidify those bonds.
Jonathan Pollard is a criminal. He committed a very, very serious crime. He was convicted of one count of attempting to commit espionage, for which the longest sentence recorded in the United States until him was 6 years. The simple question is whether or not the punishment fit the crime and whether or not he has an opportunity to petition for his own parole, for his own pardon, for his own commutation of sentence. The U.S. Court of Appeals in Washington said that his lawyers could not even see the file, although they have the highest security clearance granted in the United States. They can't even see the file, so they can't even truly make a petition themselves for commutation of sentence because, frankly, any of Jonathan Pollard's opponents can simply make up a story about what he did.
Jonathan Pollard has served 25 years in prison, his life sentence, much longer than anyone else convicted of the same offense. Federal Judge Stephen Williams calls this a gross miscarriage of justice. Many other prominent American citizens familiar with the facts, including Michael Mukasey, James Woolsey, Dennis DeConcini, and Lawrence Korb, have called on President Obama to release him. So should you. 25 years is enough. Contact the White House.
I asked Rabbi David Saperstein, Director and Counsel of the Religious Action Center for Reform Judaism, just who is Jonathan Pollard?
Jonathan Pollard was a person who worked for the U.S. government in the 1980s and was accused of spying and sharing secrets with Israel related to American defense. It has become an emotional issue simply because of the widespread impression, not just amongst Jews, but amongst Americans generally, that his sentence was way out of proportion to sentences to others who have spied to friendly countries. And there's been a campaign for clemency over the years.
Jonathan Pollard may be known to many, but on the streets of D.C., here's what people said when I asked them, who is Jonathan Pollard?
Jonathan who? Jonathan Pollard. I never heard of him.
I do not have a clue.
Oh, wow. Oh, isn't he the guy from Israel, the guy who's held as a spy for Israel?
Is he the WikiLeaks guy?
Jonathan Pollard, I have no idea. An Israeli spy.
Here are some facts on the Jonathan Pollard case from his official website. Jonathan Pollard was a civilian American Navy intelligence analyst. In the mid-1980s, he discovered that information vital to Israel's security was being deliberately withheld by certain elements within the U.S. national security establishment. When Pollard discovered this suppression of information and asked his superiors about it, he was told, "Mind your business." He did everything he possibly could to stop this covert policy and to have the legal flow of information to Israel restored. When his efforts met no success, he began to give the information to Israel directly. In 1985, his actions were discovered by the U.S. government. Jonathan Pollard was indicted on one count of passing classified information to an ally without intent to harm the United States. He never had a trial. At the request of both the Israeli and U.S. governments, he entered a plea agreement which spared both governments a long, difficult, expensive, and potentially embarrassing trial. Edward Peck is a former ambassador and director of the White House Task Force on Terrorism under the Reagan administration. I asked him, why does Israel want Jonathan Pollard free?
Because he was working for Israel, and they had this interest in seeing this chap who performed valuable services for them and not be punished for it. I doubt very sincerely if that rabbi has a firm handle on exactly how American Jews feel about this. I'm not even sure who it is. Is he from one of the Ashkenazi? Okay. Rabbis. But I mean, is he from the Hasidic side? Is he out on the ultra-right? Is he conservative? Because here in America, many Jewish people are questioning the exact nature of the relationship with Israel and some of the things that it appears to cost our country. So the rabbi can certainly say that. I suppose that Mr. Netanyahu will have to ask for his release, which some of his predecessors have done. And every time that happens, a number of very significant, well-respected Americans who were involved in the process have said, absolutely not. This man was a spy and damaged American national security interests rather severely.
I asked Dr. Malik Zulu, an attorney in D.C. and head of the new Black Panther Party, the same question. Why does Israel want Jonathan Pollard free?
I'm sure Israel wants him free because he has a whole lot of secrets and understands much more about Israeli relations and foreign policy than they would like the world to know.
Rabbi Saperstein answers the question also. Why does Israel want Jonathan Pollard free?
Israel has asked for his freedom for the same reasons that Americans here have asked for his freedoms, that this was a disproportionate penalty. They did not ask Israel, neither Israel nor anyone in the Jewish community nor any non-Jews in the United States asked for him not to be tried. Everyone condemned what he did. That it was never the issue. The issue is the way it was handled. He was promised a plea agreement and a short sentence as a result of that. In return for that, he gave up his right to a further trial. The government then reneged on the sentencing and asked the judge to give a longer sentence for it, and he ended up with a lifetime sentence. People have said, however many years it's been now, some 25 years, that this is long enough, way out of proportion to anyone else. And since Israel was involved in this, it's asked for his release at this time out of compassion and fairness.
The issue for those interested in Mr. Pollard's early release is they feel he received an unfair sentence. Mr. Pollard entered into a plea agreement with the American government, yet he still received the maximum sentence. However, many people under the American justice system have received unfair sentences. Why should President Obama care about Jonathan Pollard?
I don't think the Jonathan Pollard issue is a make or break deal between Obama and his re-election and his relationship with those that say they are Jews or the Israelis. I think that even if Jonathan Pollard is not released, I think that the Obama administration is going to do so much for Israel. They're going to make so many concessions to Israel that they will continue not to say anything about the human rights abuses, the violations of democracy, as you now see the call for justice railing throughout the Middle East. I think that Obama has enough that he will either be forced to or that he will willingly give the Israelis that the Jonathan Pollard case will not be a make or break deal.
When an injustice is done, in this case not the conviction, but the length of the sentence, the abrogation of the plea agreement by the government, then asking for a president to rectify that by granting clemency to someone who's been in jail longer than should have been the case, is something that is routinely done in the United States, often granted, and there's a hope that the president will do so now.
If we accept the fact that the Israeli lobby has extraordinary power in this country, then of course he has to be concerned about that, because his popularity depends so much upon how people perceive him. And thus far, he hasn't, as far as I'm aware, alienated the lobby at all. By the way, I mentioned in passing that democracies work on the basis of lobbies. If you and I think that they should, change the trees that they grow out here on K Street, we can talk to the city council about this, and if there's a whole bunch of us that believe that, then they'll change the trees. That's what democracy is for. And lobby is not a dirty word necessarily. You have environmentalist lobbies, but you also have pharmaceutical lobbies and insurance lobbies. And the pro-Israeli lobby has one tremendous advantage, and that is that there's no opposition. They have succeeded, the lobby has succeeded in silencing the opposition for the most part, so no voices are raised in opposition. But when Mr. Pollard's name comes up, that ignites an awful lot of people's concerns, because he was a spy for a country which we consider to be one of our strongest allies.
As of 2008, Jewish Americans represent at most 2.2% of the U.S. population, according to the Jewish Virtual Library. After Israel, the U.S. is home to the largest Jewish community in the world, with significant populations in New York City, Miami, and Los Angeles. This community is very politically involved. Quote, Jews have devoted themselves to politics with almost religious fervor, unquote, writes Mitchell Bard, executive director for the American Israeli Cooperative Enterprise and a foreign policy analyst. He adds, Jews have the highest percentage of voter turnout of any ethnic group. While only 2 to 2.5% of the U.S. population, 94% live in 13 key electoral college states, which combined have enough electors to elect the president.